I have returned. Welcome to my challenge run in which I must obtain every Pokémon with one silly twist. They must be obtained in National Pokédex order. This is part 7 of an ongoing series, so if this is your first one, feel free to keep watching this anyway, but if you want the full context, check out the playlist in the description so you can watch them from the beginning. If this is your first time seeing one of these videos, I'll go over the rules, but if you're a veteran to this channel and have heard it all before, skip to the timestamp on screen now. I must obtain every single Pokémon in the order that they appear in the National Dex. Once I've obtained one, I am then allowed to move on and catch the next one after it. However, I am allowed to freely obtain any Pokémon as many times as I like after I've gotten it once. Going into this segment of the run, I've already obtained every Gen 1 through 6 Pokémon, which means I am free to catch any of them that appear at any point. But if, for example, a wild Pikipek shows up before I've gotten all full evolved Alola starters, I am not allowed to catch it. Alternative forms won't matter for this challenge, so as long as I get any form of a certain species, that's fine too. I can use any games that I want to, and jump between them and use games that I used at previous points in the challenge, so long as playing them won't break the main rule of obtaining Pokémon in order. It's not a living dex, so I don't need to obtain them all in one game or have them all together in one place. I can trade back and forth with these games as well. I can use any side games, glitches, events, anything I want. Except actual cheating, unless I need to do it to give myself an event. However, I can only use these alternative methods if there is no way at all to obtain it in a core series game without breaking the chain and catching a Pokémon out of order. If I get a Pokémon in a side game, I won't count it as obtained in the context of this challenge until it has been transferred into a mainline game or into Pokémon Home. And with that out of the way, well, as they say in Alola, Alola. I would say Alola to you, but we're actually back in Hisui. Fortunately, the first 3 Pokémon were easy to get. I didn't have to painstakingly fully evolve this starter in a Gen 7 game because Rowlet is one of the starters in Legends Arceus. I went and talked to the professor, which I'd been putting off for ages. Upon talking to him, he gave me Oshawott and Rowlet, meaning I didn't need to go out and find it in the wild. Then it was a simple case of catching and knocking out wild Pokémon on repeat, and then after very little time, Rowlet evolved into Dartrix. Doing a slightly higher amount of grinding after that, Dartrix hit level 36 upon catching an Alpha Empoleon, and it evolved into Decidueye. Hisui and Decidueye specifically, but of course forms don't matter. And that's the last we'll be seeing of Legends Arceus for a very long time. Before I actually begin in Alola, I need to mention first the annoyances I ran into during planning. When I was writing the route for this part of the challenge, I hit more roadblocks than any other generation thus far. Most others have had just one big pain, but in Generation 7 there were a total of 5 massive problems that I identified. I'll be pointing these out as they come, and we'll see how successful I was in finding solutions to each one. They won't be for a while though, so for now, let's just actually head to Alola for real this time. I started with Ultra Sun. I didn't bother with Sun or Moon because the Ultra games bring much more to the table, and certain later forced encounters were removed in these games. But while we wait for one of this game's many cutscenes to play, I just want to ask for a tiny bit of your time. Only 21% of the people who watch these videos are actually subscribed, so if you haven't done so and managed to make it all the way to episode 7, please do consider subscribing, along with sharing the video with anyone you think may be interested. It'll give me motivation to keep making videos in the future, and this goes double for when this series ends, which is likely very soon since there are only 2 videos left after this one. Anyway, back to the main event. Entering the grass with no Pokémon meant that this terrifying Yungoos couldn't be defeated without the help of one of the Alola starters. I of course chose Litten because I was done with the Rowlet line and would then leave Popplio for Ultra Moon. Running through the next route, I met this game's insufferably nice rival, How. Oh yeah, something I noticed back when I first played this in 2017, which stayed with me forever, was the fact that the starter is shown here following the player. I always wondered what would happen if you somehow managed to fully evolve the starter in the first route. Would its evolved form be following, or did they just not think of that? I was always really tempted to do this, but the Pokemon in Route 1 all give like 5 experience each, and checking online it seems that not a single person has ever dedicated their time to doing this. I couldn't find any photographic or video evidence anywhere whatsoever. Only one post as well, on Game FAQs when the game first came out in 2017, with someone stating that it does indeed change, evident from a text dump that shows the cries are different. This person was hoping that someone would record that, but there's no way I'm doing that. So, sorry Wanderer Spike, but the first person to ever show this off certainly won't be me. Anyway, I did my first battle, won because Game Freak made the rival choose the weak starter again, and then headed into Iki Town to move the story forward some more. In the next area, this girl here happens to have something in her bag that may or may not cause me anguish later on in the challenge. It fails at running across a bridge, and so it was up to me to guard it. Then it exploded, then I got caught by Tapu Koko, another that might cause Dex order problems later, and then all's well. Then Lily gave me a sparkling stone, which I can't remember the use of. Then I met Hala, the destroyer of terrible memes, and was also given a trainer passport, and was able to play the game for a bit. This game is notorious for being full of cutscenes and interruptions to gameplay practically any time you try to go anywhere or do anything, with NPCs guarding the entrances and exits to every new location, waiting to pounce on you with exposition. Those two NPCs are new to this game, adding even more fun dialogue. I did a tiny bit of grinding to make the next battle a bit easier, with that next battle being against How, again. And I beat him, again. Then I got to the Z-Power Ring, which actually went criminally underused in this run. I only really use Z moves in dire circumstances, for the most part I just spammed the same couple of attacks, but you'll get to see that later on. Also, this refresh mechanic is useful for boosting EXP, so I made use of it whenever possible. Next up was Kukui's lab, where I got a possessed Pokédex, which is also a Tsundere apparently. Okay. I decided I'd catch a few non-Gen 7 Pokémon, so Litten wasn't all alone, starting with Inkay. I then went to the trainer's school, which was an annoyingly long and drawn-out required area, catching a Wingull, a Slowpoke and a Zorua along the way. I had to beat every trainer here, and then get introduced to Ilima, the trial captain, and after befriending a Tauros I said hello to Hau'oli City. I am a big fan of this place. It sure would be a shame if I was interrupted after taking a few steps. So I did make sure to change up my style a bit. Then I was told about these totem stickers, which did help out a bit later on. And now it's time to meet the best evil team in the franchise, Team Skull. They are barely even evil, they're just silly and like to rap a lot. That's about it. I beat them easily, of course, and after that I took on Ilima. Alola doesn't actually have gyms, it has captains who run trials and kahunas who run grand trials. And stamps instead of badges. That wasn't actually the trial though, so I headed to Route 2, battling all the trainers and catching more older Pokemon. Who was responsible for writing this? During one of the battles, Litten reached level 17 and evolved into Torracat. The next evolution would of course take a lot longer, so I just kept playing the game until it happened. Before doing the first trial, I stopped Team Skull from shouting abuse at a Mantine and terrorised people at a graveyard mourning their dead loved ones. Oh yeah, and I was introduced to a new mechanic called Roto Loto, where the Rotom Dex can give out prizes that can be used to boost stats, etc., which may or may not become relevant later. Right, let's actually progress now. The trial consisted of finding and beating a bunch of young goose hiding in these little dens. Of course, Team Skull was there too, which was of course vital to the trial. With that debacle out of the way, I summoned the Totem Gumshoes and gave it a beatdown. And if my starter wasn't so overleveled, this may have been challenging, as these totem fights can be considerably harder than gym battles. I got the first of many Z crystals, the Normalium Z, met these weirdos again, and caught a funny looking Diglett. In the next area I caught myself a Spearow. Not to use though, I did an in-game trade for a Hawlucha. This is the technique they use in speedruns since it wrecks everything, and in this run it was no different. In the Mele Meadow, Nebby had gone and ran away again, and in the cave that it went into I had to fight the blue folks again. And How as well, who has a Noibat, which gave me horrible flashbacks. Then, back in Iki Town, I beat Hala and won the Grand Trial, got the Phytanium Z and the Ride Pager. This replaces HMs, the bike, and the item finder, with Tauros being the new bike. I met Samson Oak at the beach, and I'll be seeing him later to cash in on some totem stickers, but in the meantime I was able to move on to the next island. I had to do some surfing rather than just getting there via cutscene, which was cool and all, but also heavily tutorialised, sucking most of the fun out of it. I reached Hee City, met more cool wacky characters, found out some interesting Magnemite lore, and got told I couldn't explore the whole city because a guy wanted to ride around on his dog. They brought back Dexio and Cena, the annoying duo from X and Y who did nothing useful. And after dispatching of Dexio, I headed into the next route, beat all the trainers there and entered Paniola Town. In the ranch, Mallow added Stoutland to the Ride Pager so I could find hidden items. I met Gladion, the most edgy rival of all time, and beat him, then entered Brooklet Hill for the next trial. Lapras got added to the Ride Pager so I could swim. I found all the hidden Wishy-Washy and summoned the Totem Araquanid. One relatively simple battle later and the totem went down, though levels were ramping up fast so my starter wasn't going to be overleveled for long. And of course I got the Waterium Z, and a fishing rod. The blue lads showed up again, this time fighting with one of the new Ultra Beasts, and then I also fought off more Team Skullfolk, and you know how that always ends. I reached Royal Avenue, did the annoyingly long tutorial on how to do a Battle Royale, and after winning I was allowed to continue my journey. This guy's still not letting me explore the city though. I picked up my 20th totem sticker, which I'm not allowed to exchange yet due to my rules, but I will be as soon as I can. Also, I found this guy who acknowledges the existence of Pokemon Green. Just thought I'd point him out. From Route 7, I followed the path up to the Wheeler Volcano Park and took on the next trial. Yahweh's trial is just a simple memory game, and upon completing it, I then fought to the totem Marowak. It was easy. I got the Firium Z and unlocked Charizard for the Ride Pager so I could fly around the islands. This meant I was privileged enough to go through this dodgy looking tunnel. And on the other side I met Colrus, who I never actually saw in this challenge since I barely touched Black 2 or White 2. I can't quite remember if he's a good guy or not in this game, but I certainly don't recall him doing anything wrong. The next day, I guess, I entered the lush jungle to do yet another trial, with Torracat still waiting patiently to evolve. This one was just foraging some ingredients for soup, and in doing so summons the totem Lurantis. Despite having a fire-type starter, this one actually did cause me some slight trouble, but in the end I was still able to win because, you know, Pokemon AI, nothing concerning. After that, I got the Gracium Z and was able to take on the Grand Trial. First, there was a quick stop off at a lab so Kukui could brag about having a wife. Then I also met another character who has been unintentionally ignored during my whole series, Looker. And I continue to ignore him in this game. I reached Konikoni City, which is the last place I needed to go before leaving this island, though my starter was very close to leveling up. Therefore I attacked people mourning at the graveyard for the second time in this video, and Torracat reached level 34 and evolved into Incineroar. When I played Pokemon X, I decided to spice things up a bit by playing in French, and this time I learned my lesson and didn't do that. Ultramoon was just going to be more of the same, just pick the remaining starter, get it fully evolved, and then hop back to the first game, same procedure I'd followed to the last 6 videos. So here I am in Alola once more, this time in perpetual darkness until I progress my story. Thankfully that obviously won't take long. This time I chose Popplio as my starter. A strange thing happened though, I seem to have forgotten which way to go. When I played Ultra Sun I got to the next town quickly, but I guess my bad sense of direction got the better of me. Since I wasn't sure what to do, I just knocked out wild Pokemon for a while to see if that would trigger an event of some kind. I spent a lot longer doing this than I would have hoped though. What? You mean I could just walk into the next area normally? I didn't need to spend 20 hours grinding Popplio so much that it reached level 17, which then resulted in it evolving into Brionne. Well, regardless, I found the way out and oh! Look at that, it actually does show the evolved form. That is incredible. I can't believe as well that I'm the first person to ever show video evidence of this, at least to my knowledge anyway. Well, we now know that it happens, no need to show anything. Okay, so I reloaded my save and spent a total of 45 hours getting it all the way to Primarina. Then I approached How, and as I hoped, it actually shows Primarina following me. Amazing. Also, thanks to me doing this, the first few islands were unbelievably easy. Only took nearly 2 days of in-game time to pull that one off. However, if you want to see a Rowlet and Litten's evolved forms following the player, you will need to do that yourself, because there's absolutely no way I'm putting myself through that again, never mind doing it twice more. And now we are back in Ultra Sun. Before taking on the Grand Trial, it was time to finally start catching new Pokemon. And of course, first up was Pikipek. After that, instead of evolving it, I headed into a later route and found myself Trumbeak as well. and found myself Trumbeak as well. Once caught, I decided not to look for wild toucanon as it is incredibly rare and only appears in SOS battles, so it was easier to just get it via evolution. More Team Skull shenanigans occurred. I met one of the admins, Plumeria, and beat her as well. Then it was finally time to take on Olivia. Even though I didn't really have anything reliable to take on rock types, the level advantage of Incineroar and Hawlucha did help a lot. I got the Rockium Z for winning and was able to head to the next island, which was the Ether Paradise, which is a lovely place. This is definitely not evil, full of various wacky characters and a Starmie that you can interact with for no particular reason. After meeting their leader, Luzamine, a big spooky jellyfish showed up from a rift, and thankfully I wasn't required to catch it, because it's just slightly further down than Toucanon. After knocking it out, I headed to the actual next island, starting with Melee City. My goal was of course to get Trumbeak evolved ASAP so I could start catching again, so I obliterated every trainer in the Melee Garden. Then, a few battles later, it evolved into Toucanon at last. I immediately headed back to Route 1 to catch a young goose, and because I didn't want to train it up, I then traded my 20 totem stickers for a totem Gumshoes. Fun fact about Gumshoes, Game Freak actually had to confirm in an interview that it isn't based off of Donald Trump, even though there is no way this design got through development without anyone thinking that. In the next area, I experienced the average interaction at any bus stop in Scotland, then headed up to Mount Hokulani, was told all about the amazing Pokemon League that is getting built, and before the next trial I had a quick stop off to catch the next Pokemon. That was Grubbin, and I brought it along with me to the trial. This consisted of me finding some missing Charjabug outside, then doing some puzzles involving said Charjabug inside in order to power up a machine. Once that was done, the machine got overloaded, a big Togedemaru appeared, and of course I had to give it a beatdown. And it was very easy, because I have a Dugtrio. I got the Electrium Z and then met the best character in the game. Your boy, Guzma. And I fought him, and he was not hard, but never mind. After that was done, I got the Insinium Z, which, just like the rest of the Z crystals, went almost completely unused. Grubbin still hadn't evolved and I was impatient, so I just caught a wild Charjabug instead. I caught it in Blush Mountain, and if you level it up here, it evolves into Vikavolt. After not too much time, I did just that, and was able to move on to the next evolutionary line. Right, so we have ticked off early game bird, early game rodent, and early game bug. What's next? Early game crab. That's a first. Crabrawler is an easy find. It can be attained in any pile of berries under a berry tree. Unfortunately though, and this is something a lot of you will likely have already noticed, its evolution is not quite as simple. We now come to the first big Alola problem. Crabrawler evolves into Crabominable when leveled up in Mount Lanakila. That is this game's equivalent of Victory Road. And even if you've not played these games, you'll still know that Victory Road is not somewhere you can just waltz into. You need to have completed everything to get there. In this game's case, all trial captains and island kahunas must be defeated, along with also completing a large portion of the game's overarching story. This is a big problem because I've got a lot of the game to go and I can't catch any new Pokemon in all that time. So everything after it is going to have to wait a while just so I can get that big crab. The biggest thing I was worried about wasn't the tedium of going through the whole game without getting anything new, it was actually the fact that in Sun and Moon, you're forced to catch Solgaleo or Lunala before you can reach Mount Lanakila. I was absolutely certain that this was not the case in Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, hence why I was playing them instead, but I couldn't say for sure. I was also worried that a shiny Gen 7 Pokemon may show up, because in case you were curious, if a shiny appears and I'm not allowed to get it yet, I will not catch it, as brutal as that will no doubt be. Also, it cannot be evolved using an Ice Stone in this game. That is only the case in Scarlet and Violet, since this mountain is not present in those games. Along with that, while yes, I could use Pokemon Go, in fact here's footage of me catching a Crabola there, I will only be allowing myself to get it from here if it turns out to be impossible in the main game. I reached Tapu Village, blissfully unaware that the entrance to Mount Lanakila is open. I sure hope that doesn't come back to bite me. Saving Lily from Team Skull yet again, Acerola then showed up and led me to the next trial's location, which was a dingy abandoned shop. This trial involved discovering spooky events and taking pictures of ghosts. And after taking pictures of Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar, I then had my self-esteem damaged as Acerola hadn't heard of my YouTube channel. I entered the back rooms and a cloth Pikachu jump scare occurred, starting up the Totem Mimikyu fight. After a bit of annoyance, it went down thanks to Incineroar's overwhelming strength, and I got to the Ghostium Z. Back at Ether House, since Team Skull can't bear to leave them alone, I beat them again, found out that they had stolen a Pokémon and had to go to the next town over to rescue it. I met Grimsley from Unova, who by the looks of him must have been sacked from the Elite Four, but regardless of appearances, he added Sharpedo to the ride pager so I could destroy rocks and reach the next part of the island. No idea what's going on here. I reached the outside of Po Town. The police station was full of Meowth for some reason. I got my 40th totem sticker, which is relevant later on. After beating all the grunts outside, I met yet another new character, Nanu, who reminds me of Date-san from Yakuza in that he's a detective who's also pals with the Yakuza for some reason. I entered Po Town, beat the grunts at the first barricade, and entered the only Pokemon Center in the series that you have to pay to use. However, they make up for it by performing quite possibly the greatest dialogue I've ever seen in any Pokemon game. I haven't seen anyone else appreciate this as much as me on the internet, so I'll just let it speak for itself. Flawless writing aside, I took out all the grunts, reached Guzma's mansion, worked out the password to get into the chamber, and fought him once more. After winning, the young goose scurried away and I got to Buginium Z. Next problem. Lily got stolen away by Team Skull. Gladion got so mad that he battled me for some reason, and then before leaving I had to do the grand trial, which was just battling Nanu. Darkinium Z achieved, and now we get the shocking revelation that the Ether Foundation were also bad guys. Knocking out every Ether Foundation employee, wasting all that EXP that could have been put to better use if Crabrawler wasn't so early in the Dex. I also then beat Faba, then Guzma, then Dulce, and another big revelation occurred as we found out that Luzamine is Lily and Gladion's mother. I fought her, I won, and she opened up a big portal to the Ultra Space. With that debacle out of the way and Lily looking slightly different now, I got to the Moon Flute and travelled to the fourth and final island. I met Mina, the second best character in the game, and got told I had to meet Hapu, the island kahuna. And after doing so, got Machamp added to the ride pager, the equivalent of the Strength HM. Fast tracking things a bit more, I went to Executor Island, beat a bunch of Pinsir, and got the Sun Flute. I beat up some more Team Skull grunts, got the Poisonium Z, and then had to go through the vast Pony Canyon. I started the dragon trial, and I think they'd run out of ideas by this point because you just run down a hallway fighting dragons, then the totem Komo-o appears. It was actually difficult, unlike the others, evidenced by the fact that I actually had to use strategy rather than attack, attack, attack and win. I got the Dragonium Z, then headed to the Altar of the Sun. We played some tunes on the flutes, causing Nebby to become a fully evolved Solgaleo. Right, I need to focus on the script for this video, no more silly edits for now. Okay, maybe one more. Necrozma showed up, beat up Solgaleo, and they fused together. Ultra Beasts started spawning all over the place, and overall people just weren't having a good time. Thankfully, I didn't have to catch Necrozma, and after beating it, it slipped away into a portal, and then Lunala showed up and I flew it into Ultra Space. And it was not easy because I didn't have my controller programmed to work in conjunction with the gyroscope, so I had to just click and drag the touchscreen to move it about. I did eventually fix this later on. Oh, I mean, I don't emulate, ever. Look, I own all the Gen 7 games, including the Ultra Sun pre-order box. And a 3DS. I flew through a portal to get to the Ultra Megalopolis. I met two other weird blue people and climbed up to the top of the tower to face off against Ultra Necrozma. And it was a disaster. So yeah, brute force couldn't cut it. I did a bit of grinding, made use of the Roto-Lotos I had in stock, went back and was able to hold on just enough through Necrozma's attacks, surviving a few power gems to the face, and Necrozma went down, and I was rewarded with... oh no. Wait. Nah, I knew about this. You can just say no to their offer and get Poipo later. The world was all fine again, I got some beast balls which would be helpful later, and now both Guzma and Luzamine became good. Unfortunately this game doesn't include one of Guzma's best lines, so I'll just put it here. Mina's trial was next, and it was a long one. I had to beat her in a battle first, and then talk to every other trial captain to collect petals from them. Mina gave me the first petal, the pink petal. You know what? Literally every YouTuber or streamer who plays this and gets to this point makes the same joke. But I'm not going to. Cool, I'll accept it. I went back to Island 1, I forgot all their names, to fight Ilima, and for some reason after beating him I sat here for like half an hour. I must have had to leave the house or something. He gave me the orange petal. I caught Mallow getting high off of the powder from forest Pokemon, and she gave me a green petal to keep quiet, and I also got a blue petal from Lana. I battled the best hiker and got a red petal from Kiwi. Sophocles gave me a yellow petal, and Nanu gave me a purple petal. Okay, this one is in even more questionable shape than the pink petal. People need to get their priorities in order. Back at Mina's house, I got the rainbow flower, totally not just Erica's gym badge, and the totem Ribombi showed up. And I won. And Mina did that thing artists always do in fiction but don't do in real life. Anyway, I got the Farium Z and then immediately went back to Executor Island to take on Hapu, and after beating her team I got the Groundium Z and was eligible to take on the Pokemon League. I'll just mention as well that thankfully these games don't force you to catch Solgaleo or Lunala. In Sun and Moon you can't get to the League without catching the Box Legendary, which is why I didn't play them for this run. I wanted to get to the rest of the Type Z crystals for no reason other than filling out the trainer card. I got the Flyinium Z from 10 Carat Hill, and the Psychium Z from the Haina Desert. And now it was finally time to move the Pokédex forward. Entering the foot of Mount Lanakila, Gladion came down the lift on an unnecessarily dramatic fashion, and then we battled, and I won, of course. But more importantly, Crabrawler, after all this time, evolved into Crabominable. This was a long time coming. However, I was also a little bit concerned, and I had this horrible feeling in the back of my mind, because it actually evolved at the foot of the mountain. I could have sworn it needed to be in the cave itself, though I also was sure this area was blocked off until all 4 Grand Trials were done anyway, so I was fine. However, later on I decided that when I reached here in Ultramoon I'd give it a little look. Hopefully I wouldn't be regretting it though. I decided to just worry about that later though, so for now it was time to start catching Pokemon. You've been staring at Oricorio on the side of your screen for long enough, so let's make it go away. Cutiefly is also found in the same location, so that was another easy one, and to prevent the need for evolution I got Ribombi in the Ula Ula Meadow. Then there was Rockruff. Lycanroc. I went fishing to find and catch Wishy Washy. I then went fishing in a different location to find Corsola. Using an Adrenaline Orb to make it more likely to call upon allies, when Corsola does so it gets Mareanie, which is the only way to find it in the wild, and once it appeared I caught it. Toxapex doesn't appear in the wild, so this was the first one I needed to grind. Mount Lanakila has the highest level wild Pokemon I have access to, so I ran around in there KOing everything I saw, and would continue to do this for all future evolutions as well. After reaching level 38, Mareanie evolved into Toxapex. Next was Mudbray, and since Mudsdale is ultra rare in the wild, another grind occurred and it evolved. I headed to Brooklet Hill and swam around for a while, then realised Dewpider appears in the grass here, so I caught it there, then headed to Melee Garden and caught Araquanid. I caught Fomantis, and because I had enough totem stickers I was able to get to Marowak. Oh, and Lurantis. Back in the forest, I caught myself Moralol, and straight after, Shinotic as well. Next up was a bit of an annoying one. Salandit has a 1 in 8 chance of being female, but only female ones evolve. I just caught the first male one I saw anyway, so I did actually have it, then tried using Adrenaline Orbs to summon Salazzle, but it just would not work out for me. Eventually I just decided I'd catch a female Salandit and evolve it, and so after getting it all the way to level 33, it evolved into Salazzle. Then I caught Stuffle, grinded some more, and it evolved into Beware. Next up is Bounsweet, which you'd think would be simple, but when I checked its location I got a bit of a fright, as you can't actually catch them in the wild. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon at least. I would have to catch Steenie and then breed it, which would break the chain, but it can be obtained normally in Sun and Moon. This was unfortunate. So I created a new save on Sun, named my guy after the word I said when I found out that Bounsweet wasn't available in the Wild and Ultra games, and made my way through the game as fast as humanly possible. I won't bore you with the details. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are just Sun and Moon, but with more content, and after a few hours I reached my destination, Route 4, where I caught Lillipup. After that, I made my way to Route 5 Pokémon Center and traded it for Bounsweet. This in-game trade saved me a lot of time, as it only appears in the lush jungle, which would have taken me a few more hours to reach. With that done, I ditched Sun, moved back to Ultra Sun, and caught Steenie. I did some leveling. Steenie got to level 29 and learned Stomp, which is what it needs to evolve. After that, it evolved into Sarina. Then I caught Comfy. Thankfully no evolutions needed there. We are back in Ultra Moon for the first time in a long time. The game is exactly the same as Ultra Sun, apart from the usual version exclusive changes and also the day and night cycle being reversed. For that reason, I won't go over everything I did. However, after beating Malo's trial, I was able to catch myself the Ultra Moon exclusive Oranguru. And then I put down Ultra Moon again, for a while. In the same place in Ultra Sun, I caught Passimian. Then I ambushed and caught this Wimpod, doing a whole lot of grinding to evolve it into Golisopod. Next up was Sandygast, but apparently not this one. I found one in a pile of sand, caught it, and then decided it was time to actually progress through Mount Lanakila rather than training it on wild Pokemon, as it evolves at level 42. So I did all the puzzles, if you can call them that, beat every trainer and wild encounter that I saw, and also came across Necrozma, which is an event I was not aware of. I probably shouldn't have risked getting into battle here, but thankfully you get to choose whether or not to start the fight, so I left it for now and made a note to come back later. Further in the cave I found the Icium Z, the last of the 18 main Z crystals, and then I was done. Well, I went back in to finish the Sandygast evolution to Palisand, and then I also headed on over to the sea to catch Pyukumuku. But after that, I was done. But first, we need to speak about the second Big Alola problem. That being Type Null. Why is this a problem? Because I couldn't actually remember if you're forced to get any legendaries beforehand or not. I was 99% sure there was nothing forced, as I had pored over Bulbapedia and playthroughs of the game to confirm it, but that 1% was in the back of my mind, as I've had a few occasions in this challenge where I've been caught out by something I wasn't expecting. With that in mind, I approached the league with caution. My Incineroar showed up here, and I am wondering now if someone has gotten to this stage and deliberately not evolved their starter. No, I'm not doing that. It's the usual process, Elite Four and then Champion, with two of them being people I've already battled. Molayne and his Steel types got melted without any issues by Incineroar. Ignore that one though. Then there was Olivia, taken down by Dugtrio and a tiny bit of fire as well. Acerola's Ghost type was demolished by Darkus Lariat, and then Kahili, the Flying type user, was of course taken down by Vikavolt. With that nice and easy montage out the way, I went to take on the champion. I genuinely thought Kukui was the champion, as he is in Sun and Moon. I had never completed Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, so I genuinely wasn't expecting to fight How instead. He wasn't difficult, as always. I actually used a Z move in this fight just for the overkill on his Decidueye. I became Alola's first ever champion, but if you have a glance at the Pokédex number, I'm still quite a distance from the Gen 7 target of 809. So I still had plenty to do. That was of course after being complimented repeatedly, which is always nice to see. Back home, the Ultra Recon squad people showed up and wanted me to help catch some Ultra Beasts. Of course, I had more important things to do, such as making my worries go away by confirming whether or not I could get Type Null without any other interruptions. And I did get it. I then maximised its friendship by knocking out lots of low-leveled Pokemon, leveled up once, and it evolved into Silvally. Lightning round now. Pokemon with no evolutions. Minior. Komala. Turtonator. Togedemaru. Mimikyu took a bit longer to appear. I found this one wandering around and assumed I would get to catch it, but it just gave me a Mimikyu Z, so I had to just find it in the wild and catch it. A lot of these one sage Pokemon are ones that don't get talked about very often, especially Minior, Comalia and Turtonator. One I always forget exists is Bruxish. But anyway, here it is. Bruxis fans will be eating well tonight. They got about 5 seconds of screen time. Oh look, we're back in Ultra Moon. I just went through the same process as Ultra Sun, though I needed to quell my curiosity. I decided I'd catch a Crabrawler here and check to see if I could get to the foot of Mount Lanakila. And my worries were confirmed. You can actually enter this area of Mount Lanakila from the beginning. I genuinely thought that it was blocked off, but it turned out it was available all this time. I just had to confirm this misery even further, levelling up a Crabrawler here and evolving it into Crabominable. I hadn't ever played the Ultra games this far and went through a long play of video of Sun and Moon, and in fact, as you can see from this screenshot, in those games it is actually blocked. Credit to FC playthroughs for this footage. Without them I'd have to play Sun for a few extra hours. But anyway, remembering this roadblock in Sun and Moon will probably be why my mind went straight to that area of thinking. But I really do wish I'd have checked first in Ultra Sun. Ah well, you live and learn I guess. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I just continued doing all the same stuff I did in Ultra Sun, though one big difference is of course that Lunala appears instead of Solgaleo, and Stakataka appears in this cutscene. The best Ultra Beast, no question about it. I beat Ultra Necrozma again, beat the rest of the trials and entered Mount Lanakila properly. Running around, I found the Ultra Moon exclusive Drampa. This was the reason I had to get this game all the way to this point. Oh, and I became the champion as well. Next up, a Pokemon that was unnecessarily rare in Sun and Moon. They made it considerably easier to find in the Ultra games. It used to appear 1% of the time in this fishing spot, or 10% if it was bubbling. This time it's 30% when bubbling instead. Regardless, it's still annoying because you have to leave and re-enter until it starts bubbling. Even then, you won't always find it. Yeah, like that. I did, after longer than it should have really taken, fish up Delmise, another hugely forgotten Pokemon. Next up, the pseudo-legendaries. This Jangmo-O was found at level 43, and that is the perfect level for fully evolving. If it would actually get caught. There we go. Leveling it up once, it evolved into Hakamo-O. One more level, and it evolved into Komo-O. Now then, all that's left is legendaries, ultra beasts, and mythicals. But what do we have first? Ah yes, the third Big Alola problem. You see, before attempting this part of the challenge, when I was checking out where and when you get each legendary in this game, I found out that Solgaleo and Lunala sit in front of this bridge here. And do you know what's on the other side of the bridge? Tapu Koko. And you know where Solgaleo is in the Pokédex? 6 places after Tapu Koko. When I found this out, I was scrambling for ideas, trying to figure out the best way around it. Couldn't play Sword or Shield, where you can catch it. Couldn't get it in Pokemon Go. If I knocked Solgaleo out, it just respawned. Only solution I could think of was events, and thankfully there were official events for all of the Tapus. However, the solution I got when I actually sat down and played the game was very different. The Galaxy Brain 10,000 IQ play was just walking around Solgaleo and going across the bridge. The sigh of relief that I let out was so loud it could be heard from space. With that problem no longer haunting me, I headed into each of the ruins and caught the guardian deities in the correct order. Tapu Koko first, and yes I did catch it in a single quick ball. Next, Tapu Lulu. Then Tapu Bulu, and finally Tapu Fini. Simple as that. I hope there weren't any bigger issues than this. There was a bigger issue than this. Presenting the fourth Big Alola problem. We come to the very first Pokemon where, before starting this run properly, I had literally no idea how to get. I just could not figure it out at all. Forget my concerns with Fione, Victini, Escavalier, Noibat, Noivern, Crabominable, Typenil, Tapu Koko. There was genuinely zero possibility with these ones. Unbeknownst to me, mainly since I forgot everything about these games apart from Guzma being the best character, I had not realised that there is absolutely no way to get Cosmog without first getting Solgaleo or Lunala. This is the case in Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. You need to bring your box legendary to the Lake of the Sun or the Lake of the Moon, and then you get a gift Cosmog. The only other game where you can obtain it is Sword and Shield, where you get one as a gift in the Crown Tundra. But, of course, I can't play them yet, thanks to Gen 8 starters being required. Checking through everything, Cosmog has never once been given away at an event, and although it has been available in Pokemon Go, unlike the other legendaries I've gotten from it, it was actually a time-sensitive event that ran for 3 months in 2022, so it can no longer be obtained. Therefore, and I know it's a real cop-out and genuinely a really crap way to do it, I have just simply gotten screenshots of Cosmog and Cosmo M in Pokemon Go so that I can say, if this event just happened to be running, I'd be able to get them. Here they are. The aim of this series was to prove it is possible to obtain them all in Pokédex order, and technically speaking the answer is still yes, if you just happen to have access to the event. And of course, I would just need to get in a trade to confirm I have it. That's what I would say if it weren't for the fact that I was blessed by the most divine of miracles so far in this challenge. The special research task, a Cosmic Companion, is actually available on my Pokemon Go game. I just happened to play the game on one of those very few days that the event was available. And why is that? Well, years ago I created a separate Pokemon Go account on an older phone just so that I could get some trade evolutions on one of the Let's Go games. And the date that I created it was one of the days that it was available. This is perfect because I actually needed 2 anyway, because as per my rules it needs to be in home before it can count a Go Pokemon as caught. And therefore I needed 2 Cosmog, one to keep as is and one to evolve into Cosmo M. I completed the minuscule amount of tasks required on both phones. Well, I got it on my main phone relatively easily, but the other phone never left the house, so that took a bit longer. With that said, just catching it was the easy part. The hard part was evolving it. Unlike with Carablast, I can't evolve it easily. It only requires 25 Cosmog candy to evolve, however it gains 1 candy every 20 kilometers. It started with 3 by default, so to get the other 22 to evolve it, I had to walk a grand total of 440 kilometers, or about 274 miles. This game is seriously just so much more tedious to evolve in the main series. Oh, and speaking of the main series, a lot of people asked in the last video why I didn't just transfer Noibat to a main game and then evolve it, but trust me, I would if I could. In both the case of Noibat and Cosmog, the only games other than Pokemon Home that they can be sent to are Sword, Shield, Scarlet and Violet. Which of course I cannot play due to needing Gen 8 or Gen 9 starters. And Go has no connectivity with 3DS games, so that's out of the question too. The only games I can actually connect to on the Switch at this moment in time are the Let's Go games, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. None of which can house these Pokemon. Still on the subject of Noibat, a nice little slap in the face is the fact that they'll be in Legends ZA, which meant that if this game happened to already be out when I played it, that last video would be 100 times easier. Oh, and another even harder slap in the face is the fact that Carablast became available in the wild in Pokemon Go while I was editing this video. The timing on these videos has truly been impeccable. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. It turns out that, plot twist, I didn't walk more than 10 marathons, as I didn't want to destroy the soles of my feet more than the Noivern grind already did. I had enough Poffins and rare candies lying around on my account to give Cosmog to get it to reach 25 Cosmog candies relatively quickly and evolved it into Cosmo M. I then caught it on my spare phone, using incenses every day to slowly catch all the required Pokemon. I then traded it to my main account, which was only possible since I had sent myself gifts every day for weeks. Then I transferred them both to Pokemon Home, Cosmog first and Cosmo M second. Then I was finally allowed to move on and actually play the real games again. Hello Solgaleo, I'm here to actually catch you now. Its catch rate is very high because you're expected to catch it in Sun and Moon, so I caught it in one quick ball, and keeping the momentum going I hopped to Ultra Moon and caught Lunala as well. Wait, what's that? Is that the sound of the 5th Big Alola problem? It certainly is. and it comes in the form of two newly introduced Ultra Beasts, Stakataka and Blacephalon. I was concerned about this because I had a feeling that you would need to catch them to progress the Ultra Beast storyline. But if this was the case, that would mean Nihilego and the rest were locked behind these, which would therefore mean I would have to go back and complete the entirety of Sun and Moon, getting them all the way through the entire post-game, which would make me lose the will to live, and the will to continue making this video. I actually went along with the Ultra Recon squad, entering this grass to find Blacephalon. I knocked out 2 of them, and that was good enough to allow me to progress. No force capture required. So far so good. Then Sophocles showed up at my house to tell me that some people had taken over the festival plaza. Those people were the newly formed Team Rainbow Rockets, and the lore behind them is very cool. Giovanni, from a universe where Team Rocket achieved their goals, open up wormholes and rounds up all the other evil team members, and they all get together to take over the world. Except Guzma, because he's just goofy, not evil. But anyway, there's a huge post-game storyline dedicated to it, and after finishing off the grunts at Festival Plaza, it turns out that I didn't need to do any of it. I originally thought you needed to beat them to get the Ultra Beasts, but all I needed to do was go to the Altar of the Sun and hop into this wormhole. How convenient. Team Rocket can take over the world for all I care, as long as it doesn't interfere with my Pokédex journey, it's not my problem. Speaking of problems, the 5th Big Alola problem was no longer a problem. In fact, only one of the 5 big problems caused any issues for me, and that was solved by extreme luck. I really did not need to worry about these games as much as I did. So, while running around in Ultra Space, there are different coloured portals to denote the different worlds they lead to. I was specifically looking for white portals as they all lead to an Ultra Beast lair. The number of rings around the portals and their patterns are an indicator of the rarity of the Ultra Beast that it leads to, where if they have no rings, it's like a common world with Nihilego. 1 ring is level 2 rarity, 2 rings is level 3 rarity, and a weird flower shape is the extremely rare level 4 rarity. I got to work on doing this, and oh boy, it took me a very long time. Nihilego is the most common Ultra Beast you can find, which is convenient since it was also the next one on my list. They were all easy to catch once found though, since Beast Balls give a 5 times catch rate multiplier on Ultra Beasts. Next up was Buzzwole, oddly enough appearing in a common portal. I do love the look of all these worlds. It's a shame this game's beginning is so off-putting, as so many people missed out on the cool stuff like this. Me included, until now. Anyway, Buzzwole caught easily, moving on. I had to swap to Ultra Moon for the next one, Pheromosa, as it's exclusive to this game. Again, very aesthetically pleasing battle arena. And again, with one singular Beast Ball, caught. I cut out literal hours of footage because the rest of them took such an unbelievably long time to find. I eventually found the Ultra Plant where Zerka Tree resides, and caught it of course, and the rest were just a slew of repeats, continuously finding areas I'd been to over and over, until I eventually found the Ultra Crater. In here I found the Ultra Moon exclusive Celesteela. And you know how the rest goes. The Ultra Sun exclusive Ultra Forest was another that took forever to find, which featured a bunch of trainers before I could actually reach the end and catch Kartana. This was all child's play compared to the last of the original Ultra Beasts. Guzzlord took ages to find. It can only be found reliably in level 4 portals, and they're incredibly rare, so naturally I didn't have a great time trying to find it. If you go too long without collecting rings, you get pulled into portals automatically. And with that in mind, I actually did end up getting pulled into fights with a few legendaries. Those being Azelf and Latios. Looking at the recording time of me starting the Guzzlord search until now, I had spent a total of 1 hour and 37 minutes on this. And it wasn't even in a level 4 portal either, so I guess luck decided to throw me a bone when I was almost at my breaking point. This particular area is very interesting though. It's an alternate universe in which Guzzlord pretty much destroyed the Earth, and these weird fanatics worship it. Very strange indeed. It of course does not like being approached while on a rampage, so Big Guzzlord was not too pleased to see me. Oh yeah, I caught it immediately. And I got some more weird dialogue. It was time to at last save Necrozma from its suffering. And its catch rate was likely boosted because it was caught in a single ball. And that's 800 on the total now, and still the challenge goes strong. I was also given items to let it merge with Solgaleo and Lunala, but I had no intention of using them. Next up were the mythicals. Magierna actually isn't too hard to obtain because all you need to do is scan a QR code. Getting these to work on an emulator required me to tweak the image sizes, but eventually after enough mucking about I got it to recognise the correct code. For reference, here are all the codes that would work. The code that works for you is region dependent. I didn't actually get Magierna from doing this though. I had to go to Hau'oli City shopping mall and talk to this guy here after doing the scan, and he just handed it over. Marshadow is another one which Game Freak have just decided to never let you catch in any game, so it would need to be another boring case where I add an event version of it to a game, is what I would say if it weren't for the fact that on the 14th of July, a Marshadow event was added to Pokemon Go. So back outside I went and caught Necrozma? No. Dog Zygarde. Ah, here we go. I did all the tasks required and caught myself Marshadow. Upon reaching this point in the Dex, I transferred it to home and was able to move on. At this point I'd obtained every Pokemon that existed in Sun and Moon, but the Ultra games added a few more, starting with Poipole. I rejected it earlier, but thankfully I'm allowed to obtain it later. It evolves when leveled up while knowing Dragon Pulse, which it learns at level 1, which meant it had to relearn it. But I didn't have any heart scales, so I did this brief little side quest involving delivering one in a bottle to a character at the hotel. And she just gives me the heart scale anyway. With that, I could make Poipole relearn Dragon Pulse, then quickly did a few KOs at Mount Lanakila, and Poipole evolved into Naganadel. Back to Ultra Moon now, again. The next Pokemon on the list is Stakataka. I KO'd the Blacephalon population earlier in Ultra Sun, but now in Ultra Moon I've come to actually catch this new Ultra Beast. And I just want to say how proud I am of the Stakataka fanbase. You see, over a year ago I typed Stakataka into the tenor GIF search on Discord, and there was only one Stakataka GIF. This one. So I decided to challenge this and created this new GIF, and then I published it. And since then it has been used over 1,000 times and it's spawned a whole bunch more of them. Look at all of these wonderful new Stakataka GIFs. I'm so proud that I accidentally started a revolution and unleashed Stakataka awareness to the masses. Be strong, Stakataka fans. Your voices are being heard loud and clear. Oh, anyway, yeah, I caught it. And then I returned to the same area in Ultra Sun and found and caught Blacephalon, and closed the book on Ultra Beasts altogether. Before I went and got anything else, I made sure I caught Cosmog and Cosmoem the correct way as well, just to balance things out. I went to the Lake of the Moon, or Sun, I can't remember which, and got Cosmog. I then grinded it to level 43 and it evolved into Cosmoem. And Zeraora, the final Gen 7 Pokemon in Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, is yet another Pokemon that has never been catchable in any capacity, just given away directly at events. There is no review here, I just added it to my game, completely ending the Alola saga, and moved on. Now we come to the end of the generation. Meltan and Melmetal, the anomalies that are counted as Gen 7, yet don't exist in any of the Alola games, are categorised as unknown origins and have never been available in any game apart from my new favourite exercise regime. Thankfully, this is actually one of the less luck-based ones. There is an item in Go called a Mystery Box, unlocked by transferring something to Let's Go or Home for the first time. And if you use it, Meltan will continuously spawn around you for an hour. So I had 1 hour to catch as many as I could. To evolve it, you need 400 Meltan candies, and since you get 3 for catching one, or 6 if you use a pineapple berry, and 1 for transferring, I caught a ton of them, transferred them all but a few, and after multiple sessions that left me 400 candies. One of the very first ones I caught was actually a shiny. I didn't even realise it was shiny until the battle started, so I wasn't recording when it appeared, but naturally that was going to be the one I evolved. Fast forwarding to me having 400 candies, I did indeed evolve the shiny one into Melmetal. For some reason, you cannot evolve Meltan in any main series game. This meant I also needed to transfer an extra Meltan along with this, but that wasn't a big deal considering how much I'd already caught. After that, I played Let's Go Pikachu and reached Fuchsia City, which took many hours of my time, and I entered this building which had been repurposed yet again. This time it's the Go Park complex, where you can transfer Pokemon from Go and transfer them into the park. Unfortunately, for some reason my Go game just refused to connect to my Switch. After doing a lot of troubleshooting, it turned out that my phone was the issue, as the model was too new. Classic Nintendo being clueless about hardware, never change. So instead of getting the cool epic finish I was hoping for, I instead just transferred one of the remaining Meltan into Pokemon Home, then after that, also transferred in the shiny Melmetal. This finished off Gen 7, closing the lid on what has been without a doubt the most arduous and chaotic part of the challenge so far. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you want to see more, please do subscribe and check out the rest of my channel. I've done some Zelda and Dark Souls challenges, and I'm planning on doing more in the future on various other games in between my Pokédex series. I have until the end of YouTube's lifespan to make videos, so I'll be doing just that. For now though, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. But one more thing. I said I wouldn't do it, but I couldn't resist. Because I wasn't going to be playing these again since Alola was no longer needed for the challenge, I started a new game on Ultra Moon, grinded for an eternity multiple times in Route 1, and I was able to show off 4 more alternative Pokemon following the player. Dartrix, Decidueye, Torracat, and Incineroar. I just really wanted to be the first person to ever show these off. I hope it was worth it,